Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Tales from the Film Set. I am your, preemptive host, Ryan O'Regan. Scott Churchson is, I guess, a little scared of today's subject matter, so he's not here today. But of course, got still two brave men with him right now. I've got Robert Leckington and Mr. J.T. McGuire below me, and of course, all legal stuff ahead of first. I do have it written down, so this way I don't forget it. You can catch us on the Spanglish World Network on Channel 250 on Zingo TV and over 138 different broadcasting areas around the world. You can also find us on Amazon Fire Sticks, Roku, Google Chromecast, and on all 2016 smart TVs and newer. And of course, you can find us on all social medias at Tales from the Film Set at Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Twitter, you can find us at Film Set Tales, and we really got to do something about trying to get that name back, guys. I'm going to have to write something over that. But with all the legal stuff out of the way, and if I missed something, I'm sorry, but this is my first time doing it since I've done hosting other places, but I've never done hosting for this show. So strap in, people. If I ever had to be cognizant of my swearing before, it is tonight. But Robert, JT, how you guys doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I just, well, I should say that I am doing fine. I haven't been feeling well for the past couple of days, but yeah, last week I wasn't on. Had a personal issue, but this week I'm ready to chop in and do it and do all that stuff. Chop in.
Well, I'm glad you're
Where'd that
healthier,
come from?
obviously.
I don't know
JT,
where
how
that
are you
came
feeling?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm actually surprisingly energetic for someone on 4 hours of sleep right now. A little cold down here.
Baby. That's how it comes in.
It's a little cold
behind the scenes, man. You know how it works. Once you've hit that 14th hour of pay, you just muscle through.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Now, of course, today we are actually going to be, centering the show around a particular subject matter, which is probably why Scott's not here. Horror. In lieu of the new Scream movie coming out, we're probably going to be talking the best, the worst, and the worst that's so good it's the best. But before we jump into that, there is one subject of conversation I did want to get into, and it's something that we actually barely touched on in probably the last episode, and since then more has developed, and that is some unfortunate deaths that have happened in the world of Hollywood. Obviously, many people know of Betty White, who passed just this New Year's Eve, and in the last weeks, we actually lost Sidney Poitier and Bob Saget, because they always say it always comes in threes. And mind you, there may be some other significant deaths since then, but these are the three that have really just been pounding away as far as acting and Hollywood and filmmaking are concerned, as from what I've seen. And I just want to go ahead, give them a moment. If you guys have any fond memories of any of these people, whether it be from television or from movies, just go ahead and throw that out there.
I, being a young kid, I had watched a few movies with Sidney Poitier, and he was an incredible actor, and I don't want to say that I wanted to try and be like him or anything like that, but just some of those roles that he portrayed, it was always like an activist, and it seemed to me like that was a really cool thing to be, actor / activist kind of thing. And as far as Betty White's concerned, I mean, I really didn't know much about her other than the fact that a lot of people,
thank you for being a friend.
That she was like, well, I mean, the only thing that I really knew her from was the Golden Girls, and even then I didn't really watch that show as much, but I mean, yeah, and then Bob Saget, being the father on, oh God, what was the name of that?
I'm going to tell you right now, it's Full House.
Full House,
right. Not Fuller House. That's the show that came later.
Oh, he was on that too.
Yes, he was. He had his guest appearances, as did practically every person that was ever on that show. Even people that were on for one episode got on there.
Well, the Sidney Poitier, it's definitely a tragic loss, but he was 96 years old. It wasn't too much of a surprise of his passing. It's still sad, but not as much of a surprise. Bob Saget was only 65. I mean, he's around the same age my parents are, so It's just, to me, it's like that one was a little more shocking to me, like his passing.
Well, I
Yeah,
think with Bob Saget, it was one of those things where he had a much more, let's say, lascivious lifestyle than some people would probably have figured he did back in his
well,
stand-up days and after Full House had ended. You probably saw more of the real Bob Saget in those later years as he was doing stuff on Comedy Central and Entourage and things of that nature. I can
yeah,
remember him being in that Dumb and Dumber prequel where the bathroom's just all blown up from whatever the guys were doing in there. And that's pretty much all he talks about in the movie. It's just like, "Oh, look at all this." Again, I have to watch my swearing. I gotta be good about this. But all this excrement, everything. That's all he says throughout the movie, pretty much. And it's like, I never would have guessed Danny Tanner doing this. But
Well, that was the thing, though, and I guess even though we knew of his comedy, it never outshined what he did on Full House. So a lot of people just never really, they even when they saw how dirty he really was, they couldn't wrap their mind around the wholesome father of Full House being this person.
But I
yeah,
think that was also part of what galvanized people to want to see him like that because it was such a 180. You could make the argument that Betty White was the same way. Like, yes, everyone knew her more from like the Golden Girls and the Golden Palace, and being from Saint Olaf and all that sort of stuff. The
Well,
minute she
the
started doing movies, you see her in things like The Proposal, and when she started doing other television shows like Hot in Cleveland, where she was able to be a little bit more of that, well, I'm older, so I can do whatever I want kind of persona. It just blew people's minds. I think Betty White has probably been more popular in the last 10 years than she may have been during her television runs.
yeah.
well, the funny thing about that, I don't remember the other actress's name, so I apologize. But when they were going to do the Golden Girls originally, Betty White and the redheaded actress,
Rue
they were
McClanahan.
supposed to they were supposed to have different roles because Ruth was known from more like a character similar to what Betty was playing in that show on Maude, while Betty was very well known at that time as playing a very promiscuous woman on the Mary Tyler Moore show. So it's kind
Which,
of
when you
funny.
think about it, when she was like the younger promiscuous one of that television show, and there's like practically nobody left from that show anymore. She was like the last holdout. We lost like at least a good 3 or 4 actors from that show alone last year. Like Betty White
Yeah,
was like the last nail in the coffin on that, and it's
Ed
it's
Eisner.
sad that when you see like this old Hollywood between Betty White and Portier. Portier just between Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and In the Heat of the Night. He just has a visage. You recognize him the minute you see him, the minute you hear that voice.
Yeah.
They call me Mr. Tibbs. It's like that. Just that you know he's gonna end on that. Sidney
he
Poitier was just like he had. I hate to use the word because the word gets so used. Gravitas. Portier
Yes,
had gravitas.
his voice and his stature.
I agree.
Especially being that he was one of the few, I guess you'd say, prominent black actors of his day, if not the most prominent of his day.
Right.
He was
And
the first African American to win the Academy Award and was the
yeah,
only one for almost 50 years, 40
yeah,
years.
so much so, don't they have like an honorary award in his name?
I have not paid very close attention to the Oscars in a few years. I think last time was you and I did a different show together, and we had to watch it. That is the last time I paid attention to the Oscars.
Screw the Oscars. We're never going to win one, but that's fine. But yeah, so I just wanted to go ahead and give that time. Any final thoughts on any of those remarkable people that unfortunately
Yeah, I
we
was
won't see anymore?
reading an article earlier today that the police down in Florida had, when they had found Bob Saget, that he showed signs of having a heart attack because he had his left hand over his heart, and then his right hand was along his side, laying on the bed when they found him. So they were suggesting that it was a heart attack. But now with Betty White, she had a stroke like 6 or 7 days before.
Hmm.
So a lot of
Really?
people were talking about the fact that it was COVID related, but her publicist or her agent came out and said, that's not true. She died of a
Yeah, I
complications
mean
to a
that's
stroke.
the
So
unfortunate thing of it. Two of these folks were in their 90s,
yeah,
and that's just the passing of time. When death comes, it comes.
right.
Obviously, again, like I said, Bob Saget was a little more surprising, but he led
Yeah,
a harder lifestyle. So I mean, if it wasn't a heart attack, it might have been like a couple of 20-year-olds and some blow. Who knows with Bob Saget? You can never tell. Tell me I'm wrong. Any fan of his, tell me I'm wrong. You
hey,
can't.
I don't know. I mean, there's a
I
possibility
got
that he
nothing.
was a hard drug user, but who knows?
Not a hard drug user, just a party drug user. There's a difference.
He's a partier.
You ever been to spring break? You know. But
So
yes. So
the thing
any
that those
thoughts,
gen-
GT?
the thing those gentlemen didn't have in common, they weren't in anything of a horror film. Well, maybe Bob Saget was. I can't remember.
I mean,
But
I did say the Dumb and
as far
Dumber
as I'm
people. That's
aware,
scary
they
enough.
weren't.
But yes, rest in peace to those three fine people. Speaking of death, let's. Hey, Saget would have
I
loved that
mean,
joke. Saget
it's
would have
both
loved it.
it's both a great transition and a terrible transition.
Damn right.
Yeah.
So, folks, we're going to be talking about horror films today. Now, I don't know if it's your favorite genre. If it is, definitely chime in with your favorite movies. We want to hear about those. But we also want to talk about the worst horror movies, because the reason I bring this up is because this week we do have the fifth installment in the Scream franchise, which at this point it is a franchise. I mean, it has had spin-offs. It has had television series done on it on MTV, which the first two seasons were pretty good. Third season, I don't know. You could say the same thing about the movies. First two movies, really good. Third one, I
Wait,
don't know.
Scream had a TV series?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
The first one
dear
pretty much
God.
followed relatively the same aspects of the first movie. Obviously, names and faces and everything were all changed, but it was the same idea with like a ghost face killer and stuff like that. Ran for 3 seasons. You can find it on Netflix, I believe, right now. And of course, even inspired Scary Movie, which the first two of those pretty good. Third one, you're starting to see a trend here. But the fifth movie, from what I hear, has been getting great reviews. However, it's also the fifth in a franchise. And
Mhm.
I always think that with horror movies, the minute you start going like beyond the first couple, it's pretty much like cut, paste, repeat. And I say this because just earlier today, it was noted that who was it? Was is it Mike Watt or John Watts who does Spider-Man movies for
Mhm.
Marvel? I think
Yeah.
it was John Watts. He's going to be now doing the sixth Final Destination movie, which
Uh,
I thought they had finished with those because I think the
Yeah.
last one was called The Final Destination.
well, just
When
like
does it
there
end?
was a Freddy's Dead, and then
Yeah.
there were two more movies, or the last Friday the 13th, and then there was another six of those or something.
That's funny.
Yeah, guys, has there ever been like a sequel to a horror movie that you've actually enjoyed? I will say this: Friday the 13th parts 1 and 2, like the second one, just as good as the first one. Nightmare on Elm Street, the third one, The Dream Warriors, that is the best of the whole franchise.
Oh, you think
Anything
so?
after that, even New Nightmare, not dealing with it.
I like the
Yeah.
trailer for New Nightmare. That was great.
Yes, but
Not the film, but and it did
yeah.
have it had a really good death scene in it with the cockroach death.
Oh god, the CGI on that was just grotesque, but ugh.
Well, CGI that was the 80s. That was all practical effects.
Well,
That
creep show. Creep.
no, the 80s cockroach. Okay, I thought you were talking about the New Nightmare one where it's like the guy gets high and he dreams of like this Freddy faced bug that goes down his
Oh,
throat.
no. I'm talking about the 80s one where the girl turns into a cockroach and Freddy kills her in the cockroach
Roach Motel.
hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just if anyone has never watched these movies and they're just hearing this now, it's probably like, oh my god, just like freaking people.
But
Robert,
speak
any love on any sequels?
Oh man, horror is not really my genre, but I think that like
Robert.
I'm more into like the older, not necessarily like Frankenstein and Dracula, that type of horror, but back in like the 70s, they had a bunch of like,
The Hammerstein or Hammerstone. I
yeah,
can't remember
that.
it.
I'll tell you what's the worst though. It's the Faces of Death series, man. And I don't know if you could actually call that horror, only because those.
I think Faces of Death is like its own separate thing at this
Well, that's what
point.
I'm saying. I mean, you can't necessarily call that horror, only because as far as the legend's concerned, all those people actually died on camera, kind of thing. At least that's what I hear. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Oh yeah, no, no, no. Everything you see on those movies is real, which I am not suggesting anyone search for Faces of Death because
hey,
that
if you
is
want to
just
go ahead.
That's it's not a horror film. But I don't know if we should bring that up. I'm
yeah,
speaking as
no,
someone who
no, 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 no.
I
I mean,
work in the
there's
news
ABCs
industry.
of
I've
Death.
seen dead bodies and
Yeah,
deaths
there's lots
happen.
of other kinds of death. The
It's not
ABCs
pleasant.
of Death, I liked. If you ever saw that, the anthology. Like,
I think
I
we may have
mean,
had friends who've contributed to it, don't we? I'm
I
trying to
had
think.
a friend that contributed to it. I was actually in something that was contributed to
Oh,
the
you know
contest
what?
that
Now
they had in
that
the second film.
I think the one I'm thinking about did have you. Were you in M is for Meat?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, there was a contest that went on for the sequel of the movie because the first movie did really well. If you've never watched it,
Which
you can
movie?
definitely find it on any of the
The
streaming
ABCs of
platforms, I
Death.
think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Pretty much the idea is that there's a bunch of like 26 short films. Each one is dedicated to a particular letter, and the director chooses what that letter stands for and builds the film around that. The contest for the second one is that everyone had to submit a film for the letter M. So my friend went ahead and did a film that was called M is for Meat, which I think maybe you could find it on YouTube. I don't know. It's been so long since that's been put out, but it was fun because I got to meet a lot of great people during that thing.
Was it
And
Crystal who did that one or someone else?
Crystal was the one that did that.
Okay.
But considering how many people were involved in that film, it's like, whew, that was just like in its heyday. That was Jersey, Philadelphia filmmaking right there. And I remember because they had me in like the three-piece suit, serving the people that were involved, and I was looking all scared and everything because I was like, okay, well, I know they fattened me up. I don't want them to eat me, so I just backed away real carefully. So that's why they don't, look at me as dessert. Not needing that. If you're curious about it, go ahead and try to find it. And if you find any other ones from that particular contest, go ahead and give them some love because indie filmmaking for something like that, that's like a gold mine if you can get it. It's like at the end of the rainbow. So give those people a shout out. But as far as like anthology films, um, Tales from the Dark Side always messed me up. That movie messed me up, especially the thing with the gargoyle. Because that gargoyle, when I was a kid, that gargoyle scared me. Even though I knew it was fake. But it creeped me out every time I saw it on screen. It was like the bug eyes, the teeth, the lips. So, did you guys ever have like a creature that messed you up in a movie? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a real creature. It could be like animatronic or anything like that. But what
Define
guy, what
creature.
guy, what monster got to you? Robert, you said
Monster.
you were more of a fan of like the old classics. Was there anything
Right.
from like the
Well, I
50s,
can't.
60s, maybe 70s, the black and white era? Anything like
Yeah,
that?
well, I can't really think of anything other than like maybe the Twilight Zone, where they've had like a few episodes where the people that I can't. I'm not a guy that remembers names or faces, that kind of thing. But there was an episode where there was a character that had like a sort of warped face that kind of was like, wow, that kind of shocked me as a kid.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because you don't expect like those kinds of like practical makeup effects on a
right,
television show. And then I
sure.
think even when they went and made the Twilight Zone movie back in the 80s, they pretty much like upped the ante with everything that was possible. Everything from the gremlin on the plane to whatever the kid constructed with his mind. Actually, ooh, that reminds me. In that movie, when he goes ahead and he um, pulls the cartoon out of the television and it starts doing like the Tasmanian devil spin and
Mm.
does all these like weird faces and grotesque,
Creep Show, right?
posing. And,
Is that Creep
oh,
Show?
No, Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, that's right.
Oh yeah. It was basically based upon that Twilight Zone episode where it's like everyone tiptoed around the kid
Right.
because he had like those monstrous powers,
So
and
when
he
you
turned like the
said
one guy into like a Jack in the Box.
right now, when you said creatures, that was I was kind of thinking along the lines of there was an episode on the Twilight Zone where uh, Telly Savalas played the father. He was like a stepfather to this daughter who had the mother had brought home a doll that was called Taki Tina, and how
Oh yeah, that
yeah,
oh
that
that was an
scared
evil doll.
that
That was
that
like the
scared
first
me.
evil doll. Like Twilight Zone had like that one and like Who's the Dummy?
You
Yeah,
know, I couldn't think of anything that scared me as a kid. I was like, what creature scared me? What frightened me? And so I have this story. When I was 4 years old, my parents bought for me a My Buddy doll. And then my grandmother showed
Here
me
we go.
Child's Play. So Chucky never really frightened me, and even today, I like that character. But when you're 4 years old and you watch this killer doll killing people, and then you own a said type same, it looked just like Chucky, by the way. It's like
wow.
I never played with that thing. I buried that thing in every toy box I had.
Did
It's
it
like I
come
didn't
back
want to
out and
near
sit
it.
at the foot of your bed at night?
Look, it could have been worse. It could have been like that clown doll from Poltergeist, where it just like grabs you from under the bed and just like
Yeah,
pulls you under.
Yeah, that's the thing that what always kind of framed me was never a creature. There's nothing I ever saw that
right.
framed me to the point that it's just like, oh God. I remember what framed me was what was always in the dark as a kid. Like, so if it was just you're in the dark and whatever can grab you in the dark. And I think that works for horror too. Like less is more. When whatever is chasing you or haunting you or trying to kill you, you don't see it at all. Did you guys ever see the original Dark Water? Not the American one, the Japanese one.
Mm.
No, obviously. It's not one of those ones that comes across my screen too often.
It was for a while when the American one came out. The Japanese one was playing on Cinemax for a bit,
Hmm.
and I loved the film. It was amazing how they shot everything, the suspense of it all. How you never saw like the evil little girl, or at least not her face. And then, like, for this entire suspenseful film that has aggravated me as I'm watching it, you get to the end, and then it finally shows her face, and it's this really lousy prosthetic makeup.
Right.
And it's just like, you killed it. It's dead now. I'm no longer frightened of you.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think that works well with horror. Cinema in general, I think, works well with horror because there's so many different tricks you can do, from quick cuts to different angles to lighting,
Yeah.
that can just make something scary in an instant.
Burnt
And
offerings.
especially when
Burnt
you're seeing it in theaters and
burnt
everything's all dark and already, and you're already put on your edge of suspense of like what's going to happen next, what's going to come after you. That's why slasher films like Halloween and Jason and even Scream work so well, because there's everything's fine, and in the minute you like open a door and then close it, boom, there's a guy in a black mask, just like ready to get you.
Yeah. I did want to bring up another point, but I want Rob to be able to get in a word because I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I wanted to mention burnt offerings was one that really scared the crap out of my sister and I when we were kids.
Oh yeah, no, crap's fine. We can say crap. Go ahead.
Yeah. But it was
Good old
just
Fox.
the they had like this character that was like a hearse driver in that film that he all he wore were like these black glasses, like he was scary looking because of his face. It was just like kind of elongated and had like these really long teeth, and he was always smiling at whoever was like trying to, like, you were scared of him, right? And as he's smiling, you're like, oh my gosh, scary. It was one of those types of films that just my sister and I
But you
we
don't
really
remember the
had.
name of it? Because that sounds
Burnt
pretty
burnt
cool.
Burnt Offerings was the film. It has Oliver Reed, Betty Davis, Karen Black,
Oh
uh,
wow.
Burgess Meredith, the guy who played the creepy hearse driver. He was the one of the bad guys. And you remember the film Escape to Witch Mountain?
Yes.
Okay,
Depending
so
on version.
huh?
Depending on the version.
Yeah, depending on it was like the older, early, I guess late 70s, mid
Well, yeah,
70s.
Escape to Witch Mountain was the first one. Then there was Return to Witch Mountain, which was the sequel, and then there was Race to Witch Mountain, which was the remake.
Okay, I think Betty Davis
Not
was
that I'm showing
actually.
off trivia. I'm just saying.
I think Betty Davis was in one of those, but I may be wrong. I'm just saying that like she played like this woman who was chasing her driver was this guy who played the hearse driver.
Oh, okay. No,
He's
I'm
been in a
remembering now. Yeah,
lot of
it was the second movie because I
okay,
think she had like control over the boy alien.
right,
Yeah,
right.
that was the second one. That
So
was Return to Witch Mountain. And
okay,
oh, so it was that guy. Oh,
that
okay.
guy
Yeah,
he
now I
was
know
just
who you're
and
talking.
he's in a lot of different films where he plays like the bad guy character, and I remember seeing him. He died not too long ago too, but I mean, when we were kids and seeing that on film, it was just like, oh my gosh, we were like, you know, looking through our like robe type thing because he was scary, man.
Yeah, I think it's
Wait,
just
I
something
think
terrifying about like an older gentleman smiling at you. Like you
Exactly
don't know what's behind those glasses. You don't know what he's thinking. You don't know what he's plotting. But the
right.
thing is, he looks happy, and old people looking happy is just I don't know.
Check it
I
out. It's a good film.
I found an image. Unfortunately, it's incredibly small.
Yeah,
Let
When you
yeah.
me see if I can get it
I
in
think
my
his name is
corner here, real fast.
Anthony. Anthony something. I can't remember his last name, but he was in a lot of different films and TV, mainly TV. I think where he was in a lot of different TV series where he played like
oh yeah,
a day player. Yeah, that's it.
yeah. No, that's unnerving.
Yes, and now Oliver Reed plays the nephew to Betty Davis's character, and so
Okay.
where he's as a child, he sees this person staring at him at his father's funeral. And so, in one of those scenes where they're at this mansion because they rent a mansion for the summer kind of thing, he shows up and like he throws this casket at Betty Davis because she's on the verge of dying in this house, kind of thing. And he's like staring at the Oliver Reed's character, smiling the whole time, like you just know that she's impending, her death is impending. After he like tosses this casket across the room and kind of basically crushes her, and it's
That's like the kind of
crazy.
thing you'd see in a Resident Evil game at this point, just like taking the whole casket and just like hurling it. That's a nemesis move.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the thing.
it's
It's like the
pretty
guy
intense.
you're talking about. Like once you have a career in horror, or once you even have a movie in horror, I think you can make a career out of it. Because think about how many mainstays there are of the horror genre. Think of like the I guess one that always comes to mind that I've never seen in anything but horror movies is like Tony Todd. He just always has like that look and that voice that is imposing. Like I've never seen him in like a comedy because I think it would just be like weird if I did see him in a comedy. Whereas someone like Robert Englund, who is just synonymous with Freddy Krueger, he could probably do comedy, but more than likely like, he's always done horror, whether it's been low key or high budget.
He was
And
in Adventures of Ford Fairlane. He played like a hitman that his whole character was just comedic to begin with. He was like he had this sort of English accent, and he was chasing after Ford Fairlane throughout the whole film, and he finally ends up,
yeah,
whatever.
but
But
that's the
yeah,
thing. It's like you look at those faces, and it's like you'll instantly think of like something horror that they came from.
right.
Yeah.
Whether it be, Freddy Krueger or Candyman or Final Destination for Tony Todd's sake. And I
Well,
always love that a genre that is so diverse, that is so, hit or miss. It's like some people will find something scary and some people will find some things funny, depending on your own tolerance. you could still have a full career in something like that, and you don't really have to be anything but menacing. Really dig
Well,
into the
character
id.
actors. So
Yeah,
once you find a
it's
niche, you keep getting the calls once you have a niche.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think Robert Englund got to a point where he didn't want to play Freddy anymore, and
and they
it's been
still drag him back.
and I know they did a new Candyman, but I don't think Tony Todd had any involvement in that, even as like a ghost of the original Candyman.
I think they did show him
Did
towards
that?
the end.
Well, was it him or was it like stock footage? I didn't
That I
see it,
couldn't
so
tell you because I didn't see the new one.
because
But I did
I was
hear
looking at
decent things.
I was looking at the cast. I didn't see his name on it.
Not even as an uncredited at the very end.
It's been a while, but I just remember I not him physically. But I've been wrong before many times. Uh,
But
well,
yeah,
I have a
even
question for
women
this
like
because
you have
you
to
brought up all the bad Final Destination sequels. Now I only saw the original and I love the original. And I just remember Tony Todd showing up there to explain how deaths works. And I'm just like, are you death? Or is it going to turn out that you're the one causing all this? Now, did he come back for the sequels and did they ever play that up or was it just kind of a one-off thing?
I think he has come back. Maybe not for all the sequels, but he has come back for. Gee, okay, that scared me. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, no problem.
What are you doing there? What are you doing? I can
I just
zoom in too. Yeah.
I
How you like
had
it?
to grab my
How you like
phone.
when I zoom in? Huh? Huh? Can zoom in on
There
me?
you go. That's
Huh?
This is
scary.
what happens when Scott's not around. The asylum just opens up completely, and everyone zooms in on themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very suspenseful.
Yeah, no.
That's the zoom in you get before someone gets like slashed in the heart. That's good.
And you see how much dust is on my lens.
Uh-oh.
But even women have had a fruitful career as far as horror is concerned. Anyone can look at Jamie Lee Curtis and see Halloween.
I
And
don't know. I agree. I agree. But I don't know if it helped her career because I feel like she broke away from it and then entered back into it with H2O and she hasn't been able to leave it again.
that's her choice. She's the one that signed on the contract. But
But
I think with women in horror, it's more of like the B list movies, like the kinds that were like straight to video or that sort of thing, where the people became more synonymous. Like the name Linnea Quigley always comes up in my mind whenever I think about women in horror, and she's one of those ones that was like, Night of the Demons and you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, different kinds of movies where she was a scream queen, and I always love the scream queens because anyone that can go ahead and make a business off of like killing your own throat constantly,
Yeah.
more power to you. I couldn't do it. My tonsils won't allow me to do it. But
I
there's something
unfortunately, and
shattering about that. When a woman goes ahead and just like belts out that one scream that just almost pops your eardrums.
yeah,
There's
and
the horror con that's coming to Atlantic City here in the next couple of weeks, I guess it is. You'll be able to see a lot of those scream queens, I guess. Clarissa Rose comes to mind when I'm thinking of like a scream queen from like the 80s.
Sleepaway Camp, right?
Yeah. So
I don't know if they could make
more.
a Sleepaway Camp now, just because of like the way the plot ends.
Yeah.
I don't know if people would get
they
too
would
freaked
have
out.
they would have to make a tweak to it.
There you go. There's a scream queen for you.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Like again, once you just need like one good scene where you can go ahead and get killed, and it's for life. People will remember that for that more so than anything else you do in any other kind of genre.
I
Right.
think as a filmmaker, and I think you gentlemen may agree, it's one of the great things about horror is just it's fun. It's fun to make. It's fun to watch. As I was telling you guys before we came on camera, there's no really such thing as a bad horror film. There's a good horror film, and then there's a really weird comedy. Either way, you're gonna find enjoyment.
Right.
Okay, since you brought that up, I do have a listing here from Newsweek, which is the 50 worst horror movies of all time, and this was something that was put out last year, so it's up to date. I would just want to run through like the top 5 to start with,
Okay.
and see what you think of like if they were more horror movies or weird comedies, provided that you saw them. All right.
Probably didn't.
Okay, so the first one is from 2012, The Devil Inside.
I've heard of it, but never saw it.
That's gonna. Is that the one that oh man, one of my favorite directors, the guy who made Evil Dead, Sam Raimi. Did he do that one?
I don't think so. It was one of those found footage ones.
Oh, never mind then. No, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
That, you
Not a
know
fan
what?
of
I
the
take
found
it
footage
back.
horror?
I take it back. There's also the lazy ones too, and that's the
Oh,
found footage ones. You know, all right. So they did it with
Blair Witch.
Blair Witch, and it made a lot of money. By the way, I've only watched Blair Witch once. I don't think I
Same
had
here.
any interest in ever watching that after the first time. It was boring. But
Yeah.
you know, they paranormal. What was that? The really
Paranormal
The
popular
Activity.
Ring. Oh no.
Paranormal Activity was pretty good. But I mean, after that, it's just you're just trying to recapture that magic over and over again.
Well, like The Ring, wasn't that like there was a Japanese version before it came to the United States? It was a
Well,
found
that's
video
different.
game.
That's but that's different. I mean, with The Ring, that was an actual crafted film, both the Japanese version and the American version, which was also
Yeah.
very, very good.
Yeah.
When we say found footage, I mean like someone says like this is footage found from Joe Schmo, and we have pieced it together to see what happened in the last days of their lives.
Well,
And then you watch
whatever.
this
Always gets old.
2 hour, you watch this 2 hours of like, oh no, what's in this room? It's a ghost. And then you have the really bad CG, like black over the face stuff, and it's
Sure.
just like, yeah.
Oh god.
Either
Like I
way.
said, I think I just think those ones are lazy. I think that's just you're cashing in on that. But like
Well,
a
I do remember
pure
watching this one. Isabella enlists the help of 2 exorcists to establish whether her mother is possessed or mentally insane. And yes, I do remember the ending of this, which spoiler alert, it ends with a car crash where everyone dies except the thing that was possessing the person. So, you know, very much of a downer. But
That's
I
awesome.
think that's the thing with found footage. It's like I think found footage is more for like the film tricks as opposed to the narrative, and I think that's where it hurts.
I was gonna bring up the because I know Scott wants us to start bringing up the chat stuff, and I had like a big red box over it so I couldn't read it. And when
Oh,
I
what?
when the box disappeared, I realized that whatever they're writing, I don't know what it
Oh,
means.
Eduardo, if you can put that on screen, if possible.
Well, I don't what are they writing though? I don't know what that is. Should we share that?
Yeah, that looks like a
I don't
web
know.
address.
I can't
Nah,
see
You
it.
wouldn't
never,
want to go
no,
to.
never mind. Never
Hold on,
mind.
hold on. This might be a horror movie in itself. Maybe we're getting like a ghost trying to talk to us, and it's gonna be like some really freaky stuff if we see it.
He was he's no longer watching. He's done. Don't worry about it. Well, let's moving on. What were we talking about?
Ooh,
A list of 5 crazy horror films. That
Yes.
maybe-
We were talking about Isabella. So
this is gonna be creepy, man. I'm telling. Oh, this is some stuff. It's nothing, folks. I'm just messing. I'm just trying to like build up tension.
so
I'd try
I
it.
forget. Was Isabella a sequel?
No. You're thinking of Isabel from the Conjuring movies. This is just a
Yeah.
character from The Devil Inside.
Oh, well,
Okay, so next one, Six Souls from 2010. Forensic psychiatrist has to think quickly when she discovers that almost all of her patients' multiple personalities are murder victims.
Sounds interesting.
I would say if that's who your clients are, get out of the business. All right.
that-
One
potential for a
personality
weird
being a
comedy.
murderer is one thing. We've seen that in Split. All of them being murderers, maybe just give them the red pill and send them on their way.
Here you go. Here's your medication.
Let's see, number 3, Martyrs from 2015. Another failed remake. Rotten Tomatoes critic consensus reads, Martyrs flays off everything that gave the original its icy, horrific beauty, leaving us an empty, pointless remake. Which, let's face it, every time they've tried to remake horror films, it hasn't gone well. One
I
could
mean,
argue every time they've tried to remake the classics, whether it be Halloween remake or a Friday the 13th remake or the Thing remake that we got like in the 2000s, it never ever really holds up to the original. I think it's only rare that you get a remake that's better than the original.
well, the crazy thing was, the Freddy and Jason movies kind of got a rest for a good maybe decade or so before they decided, hey, let's reboot these series. And actually, if you don't count Freddy versus Jason, almost 20 years.
Mm.
And when they came out, like, they were so boring. Like, when you watch a Friday the 13th movie or a Nightmare movie, you're expecting these weird, crazy deaths. And then they release the most bland horror film you can get for both series.
It's like they almost try to they try to revitalize it and make it more modern and like leave out all the classic trope stuff. But the classic trope stuff is what makes the horror work. To go back to the original premise of this is why Scream and its sequels kind of have worked, because they laid into the idea that there are rules to horror and that things are supposed to go A to B to C. And then the minute people understand that, they can subvert it properly and screw with people.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't see that in the remake. The remake is just more gaudy or glitzy, and it doesn't really have the suspense factor that you need.
Yeah, and once you start screwing around with the remakes and stuff, it's like, okay, we're gonna take all this stuff you knew and throw it out the window. Or, hey, the first one was really, really good, so we're gonna keep that one, but then everything after that is deleted, and then this is the new one on top of it. It does get a little dull after a while.
Robert, anything to add?
I'm good. I really don't have. I mean, I've never really heard of these films, so
Neither have I. So far
wait,
we've
wait,
had
no.
a
Isabella.
This
I've
one I
heard
got
of,
for you.
but, yeah.
Return of the Living Dead Part 2.
Okay, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it, but now my buddy Scott Scott Goldberg.
Scott, who's that?
Scott
It's
Goldberg was he did like an extended version of like some of the footage that was used in the original film. They did it in a certain location in Pennsylvania, and so what they wanted to do is they revisited back to that location, and so he was, because he was such a fan. I don't know how he contacted George A. Romero and his team, and how they were able to, let him come in and like do sort of kind of an expose kind of on this location that they shot in. So he was involved in that. I was like, man, that's pretty cool. So
Very
that's my
nice.
connection with that. I haven't seen the film, but
you actually finally listed one I actually did see. It wasn't as good as the original, but the Return of the Living Dead series was supposed to be the much campier version of the Night of the Living Dead. The first one, I was going to bring this up a little earlier. I know I'm a little tongue tied here because I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. I didn't think this was going to come up. Okay, Rob, I don't think you've seen these films, but Ryan, you may have. Do you remember the scene where the gang, like the punk rock gang, is now in the building where they release the gases? And
yeah,
the
so
one with
the first Return of the Living Dead.
Yes, the first one. And the guy with the hawk hair is just like, I'm not afraid. And they're in a basement. He pulls back a curtain, and it's just this cheesy skeleton right there. And he goes, brains, and then bites him right in the head.
Wow.
Hey, to be fair, that monster, that zombie, that goop thing that was in the canister, that was ridiculous looking. Like that was.
To this day, I think about that. Maybe not every day, maybe not every week, but definitely almost every month of every year. And just randomly, I'll go brains, just thinking of that scene.
All right, start
Well,
getting
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I mean, there was pretty much nothing but camp in that pseudo sequel. Because I mean, if this is supposed to be the next movie after Night of the Living Dead, it was like apples and oranges. But
and the film finishes with blowing everything up, but suddenly
yeah,
there's a sequel. Um, I did see the sequel too. It definitely is not nearly as good as the original, but
oh, you
for
mean the one where they go ahead and electrocute everyone on the bridge,
did
and
they
that's how they
electrocute
solve the zombies?
that? I thought everyone died. Or you know
No,
what?
no, no. This is the one.
I might be mixing the two together. I might be
Yeah, no,
mixing
this
two
is the one.
movies.
Three kids pick up a container that emits a deadly green vapor that happens to attract murderous zombies. This is the movie where they went ahead and their plan to get rid of the zombies was to bring them onto a metal bridge and then electrocute the bridge so that all the zombies were electrocuted
Sounds
because it was the 80s and science was cool.
sounds sensible. Sure.
Like I said, it's either a good horror film or a weird comedy.
Oh my
Hey.
god. All right. Well, I'm not even
Let's
going to
kill the
bother with
zombies
like
with electricity. Ah. All
I
right,
mean,
next
there's a
one.
couple of classic ones in here on this list. Robot Monster from 1953, The Creeping Terror from 1964. Horror movies back in like the black and white era were just a completely different entity because I think you could be cheesy in those movies. You could be almost cheap with those movies because I don't think that was really the main attraction for those kinds of films. People went to the drive-ins and the theaters to like, be there on dates and to like curl up next to somebody and if the girl got scared, it's like, "Here, I'm there for you." And then we've pretty much taken that mentality all the way to this day. But I think it was most effective then because no one cared how good the movies were. They were just there as like a plot device themselves.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I don't remember most 50s sci-fi films. I was more of a fan of the 30s and 40 films. But yeah, there was some creative stuff back there. It was all cheesy and it very bad special effects, but
Well,
hey,
Ed Wood.
yeah,
Ed
and
Ed Wood comes to mind.
but a lot of that stuff also inspired a lot of the 80s stuff where people looked at it and went, hey, they have some great ideas here. And they brought it to a time where they did have better special effects. The Thing, which is still to this day considered one of the greatest horror films of the 1980s. Yes.
That's right.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. One of the greatest horror films in the
Here we go, man.
1980s was based on a sci-fi film in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the other day, I was on Redbox, and they have a recurring channel of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I was watching them spoof on the Attack of the Giant Leeches, and it's pretty much as it sounds. These giant plastic garbage bag looking things that attach themselves to people's body and just like suck out the blood, and they detach, and there's these rings on the neck and everything. They dragged people on this like it was definitely Florida. This could only happen in like Florida or the bayou, and dragged them under into their cave and attacked them. And aside from seeing those scenes, everything else was just dialogue about what are they, Professor? And it's like, well, something nuclear happened to them. Obviously, they've become cognizant, and it's just like 15 minutes of dialogue that I don't care about. Just either kill it or have it kill something. All right, I'm out of
Well,
the drive-in. I don't have the girlfriend to neck with myself. So show me the depth of these things already. Why are we dragging it out? Oh my!
Sometimes a concept works for 5 to 10 minutes and not an hour, not hour 30. Uh, so it looks like we might have around 5 minutes left.
Yep, getting there.
Now we do have two more films on that list, but since Scream kind of brought this up, do we want to talk about the new Scream a bit? I mean, I haven't seen it. I have nothing I can really say about it, but do you gentlemen have anything to say on the new Scream movie?
Well, I mean, I'll definitely be seeing it on Friday. I already have plans to go up to New York to watch it with somebody who is currently this week marathoning through the other four movies in order to get themselves amped for it. And I mean, as far as this movie is concerned, I mean, I don't know if you can really have too many expectations for a horror film nowadays because either it's going to be one of those things where will it have a sequel? Will it be part of a connected universe? Is Ghostface going to meet up with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the face later on? We don't know. The important thing about a horror movie to me is, do I get spooked or scared or shuddered in the moment that I'm watching the movie? That's the only thing that matters. I'm not going to necessarily be talking about it too much after the movie with anybody unless people are really freaked out by something, and I'm going to go ahead and just try to, like, scare them from behind for the rest of the night. But unless you get me in that moment, it's nothing to me. And mind you, I love horror. I do enjoy the creativity that comes in the genre. I've been a part of a couple of horror shorts myself. JT, you handled one of them, actually. And so there is an affinity for just wanting to be a part of that genre because there is so much fun you can have with it. But what you have on fun on set has to also translate to fun for the audience. If you're not scared during a horror movie, it's not a horror movie to me.
True. There's definitely a lot of argument for that.
Yeah, no,
So do you
I was
guys have any
involved.
ambition to see the film yourselves?
No, personally,
Not
unless hey, is Drew Barrymore in it? She come back from the dead?
No. Then, look,
do
if
they
that
have her
turns out
head
to
like
be
on
the
a
twist
table?
and
Like
she's the killer, believe me, I will be just as shocked. I will be
I'm
like,
back.
"Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, the fact that they're even getting back the three main people that they've had throughout the entire franchise, they're getting back Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette in their recurring roles. Someone's got to die of those three. They have to. The minute they killed off Jamie Kennedy in the second movie, that irked me. So they've got to kill one of those guys. But I mean, I'm sorry, but I mean, if you intend to keep it going, the fourth one was forgettable. I know who the killer is. I don't even know why the killer was the killer. The third one, that's when they started jumping the shark with like the secret brother and everything. Which if you haven't seen it, it's old enough. Go and check it out. But yeah, I'm really hoping that this whole new cast of characters, where they got Jack Quaid in there. So Jack Quaid, I have high hopes for. If he's going to be the person that may be continuing on the series from here on out, I'm cool with that because I liked him in the Boys. I want to see him like develop more. But outside of that, you just better scare me when I see it. Scare me or scare the person I'm with. One of the two. You have a 50-50 shot.
Right.
Get it done.
I hate to cut you off, sir. I know you're on hosting duties here, but the old MC op in me says it's time. We need to start wrapping it up. We got around 40 seconds left. Do we have anything else we have to plug before we call it a day?
Well, tomorrow night we are going to be going ahead and doing our watch along series as we've been doing for the past couple of months. We will be doing the next episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and we will be shattering expectations on episode 3, just like we have done for the last 2. And possibly, if I can swing it, we may do the first 3 episodes, a special Thursday showing of Peacemaker. Thursday morning or afternoon, whichever time we can go ahead and do that. So, of course, definitely follow us along on all the social networks that you can. Again, Tales from the Film Set on pretty much everything. Twitter, Film Set Tales. And definitely check in, watch along with us, enjoy those. And again, check out some horror movies. Check out Scream this weekend. And let us know in the comments afterwards how it turned out. For myself, for Robert, for JT, we hope you have a very scary weekend. And does Scott usually say something specific when he chimes out or no?
Yep.
I do. Bye-bye.
Toodles.